What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so I have some sad news to announce. I was on LB's podcast a couple hours ago. Shout out to LB of the LDBC. If you're not subscribed to LB's YouTube channel or his Patreon, please subscribe to both of those venues. I was on LB's podcast when the news, he actually, brought the news of Regis Philbin's passing. And it hit me pretty hard. Like more and more the people that I grew up watching television with are leaving us. I didn't announce this on my channel, but a couple of weeks ago, Hugh Downs of 2020, with Barbara Walters. If you watched that in the 80s and 90s, Hugh Downs passed away. But Hugh Downs was a television fixture for several decades. But Hugh Downs passed away at the age of 99. Regis Philbin, who was a fixture for many, many years, with him, his namesake, and Kathy Lee, and then later Kelly Ripa, passed away today at the age of 88. Regis Philbin had been battling some health issues over the past several years, including having to have angioplasty to clear blocked arteries. I believe he had an issue with valve replacement or repair. He had hip surgery maybe about a decade or so ago. And I think something else I read that he, over his life, had issues with high blood pressure, which he spoke about on the show, had issues with high cholesterol, which he spoke about on the show, and acid reflux. And I know what that's about because I suffer from acid reflux. But Regis Philbin also set a record throughout his legendary career. He holds the Guinness Book of World Records for most hours appearing on television. And I don't think it's close. So, Regis Philbin was born in 1931. Right? He was born August 25th, 1931. And in 1952, he graduated from high school. And he spent 2 years in the U.S. Navy as a supply officer. I'm reading from the Los Angeles Times. Credit to the Los Angeles Times. On his last day of service, a tough-talking major asked him what he was going to do the rest of his life. At that time, television was a still young, new form, and it piqued his interest. He wanted to get in television. He told them that he liked to go into television, but he didn't know what he could do. He wasn't a singer. He wasn't a dancer. He was not a comedian. Those are basically the individuals that were on television at that time. But he knew he wanted to be in television. So the major told him to work hard at it and try the best that he can, if that's truly what he wanted to do. So Philbin went out to Hollywood and tried to make his way out on the West Coast, but it did not work. So he returned to New York, and he started at the bottom rung of the entertainment business and television, which is being an NBC page. 6 weeks later, he was hired as a stagehand at KCOP TV in LA. His next stop was back in San Diego, where he worked in radio and local television news before hosting his own program, That Regis Philbin Show, in 1964, when he was only 33 years old. It was pulled, however, after just 8 episodes. His first prolonged national exposure came when he was tapped by ABC in 1967 to be Joey Bishop's sidekick, Joey Bishop of the Rat Pack fame, following the dynamic Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon Tonight Show model in late night. After this period of time, Joey Bishop quit, and Regis Philbin took over as host of the show for the last several weeks of the show, which went off the air in 1969. The next year, he married his wife, Joy Sinise. And later on, Philbin became a host of a top-rated morning show called AM Los Angeles, which he co-hosted with Sarah Purcell and Cindy Garvey for much of the 1970s. The show didn't do particularly well, and it was during the 1980s when he reteamed with Cindy Garvey in New York on ABC's The Morning Show, which became the forerunner of Live. After Cindy Garvey was replaced with Kathleen Gifford, who was, of course, the wife of the late NFL legend Frank Gifford, the ratings improved and the morning show was renamed Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. And the show became syndicated nationally. And that's the show that most of us grew up watching him in the 80s, into the 1990s, and into the 20th century. The twosome became an establishment, and the opening gab session was generally centered on Philbin's stories about what happened to him at home or out and about the night before. It became a trademark. Everyone and everything, including his wife, teenage daughters, newspapers, reporters, and especially his perky blonde co-hosts, were right for his brand of ribbing. And they were a fixture on television together all the way until 2000, when Kathy Lee left the show. There was a series of temporary hosts before he permanently teamed up with Kelly Ripa. And he was with Kelly Ripa all the way until, I believe, it was 2011, I think, when he left the show. And, of course, he was replaced by former NFL player Michael Strahan. Regis Philbin is survived by his wife of 50 years, Joy Philbin, and 3 daughters, JJ, Joanna, and Amy. And he'll be survived by 2 grandchildren. And he was truly a legend in entertainment. I remember, he was so famous at one point that I remember he was being parodied on SNL by Dana Carvey, which is how I think most people impersonate Regis Philbin. Like a lot of times when you're doing an impression of somebody, you're doing somebody else's impression. But I remember Dana Carvey used to go like this with Regis Philbin. I'm going out of my mind. I'm going out of my mind. Because he used to always go on these little rants about stuff. Well, Kathy, I was out in Manhattan, and I'm looking at all these things in the computer, and I just can't figure it out. It's making me go out of my mind. But in all seriousness, though, rest in peace to Regis Philbin. I think he was truly a legend in television. And also, I missed something just now. I just forgot it. He also, on a whim, back in 1999, this is why I did a video about him, because he's truly legendary. On a whim in 1999, he decided to host a little program that he didn't think was going to be much of anything, called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I remember this show started in 1999, and before Survivor overtook it the next year, Millionaire was the biggest thing on television at that particular time. I think it was drawing like between 25 and 30 million people every episode. It became a huge phenomenon, so big that it garnered copycat shows, but none of the copycats could quite match up to Regis's show, and later on, I think it was Meredith Vieira that took over that show, but it wasn't quite the same without Regis, because Regis just could really, fool you into thinking that she ain't got the right answer, So your final answer is Texas. Yes, Regis. Yes, Regis. And he got that face like like you fucked up. Correct answer. Yeah, I don't know, man. But rest in peace, Regis Philbin.